Welcome to another edition of Monster Monday with 1988's The Brain. This is a film that I've loved for years, and I have yet to see anyone ever bring it up. But I do have some really awesome followers on here who seem to have seen everything I've ever seen, and I'm sure there will be a couple of you like, I love this movie. So that's awesome. Please say you have if you have, so I can know that there's a lot of other cool people out there. That sounds like I'm calling myself cool, but come on, I've seen The Brain. I'm a little cool, right? Anyway, speaking of cool, I want to give a shout out to a few people really quick who were gracious enough to give me some love on my last Monster Monday video because I said that I didn't know if anyone liked this or not. And I got a bunch of people kind of lighting it up like, no way, man, I love Monster Monday. So thank you, and I'm bad with names, so lay off. I tried, okay? Horror Show Entertainment, that one's easy. Mauve Mouse, Retro Sex, I know who that is, Ray Robinson, you awesome motherfucker. The Sage of Six Paths 1, Aaron Johnson, Frederick Wilby, and Pose Nicholson, Pose, maybe? Pose, you, or Pose, whatever. You, man, you really comment a lot, and I really enjoy reading all your stuff. So, anyway, let's get to this movie. Now, the tone of this film and the music in this film are both just very oddball. And this whole film is. And that's why I just love how, like, off-kilter it is. The way that the film feels throughout, it just feels like a dream. There's such an odd tone to this film throughout, especially in the opening. And the opening really sets a great tone for this movie because it is just weird and awesome. We get this girl whose mom is watching the TV, and she's telling her to come down and watch with her, and she's like, no, Mom. Like, you can already see she has some like big time aversion to this guy on TV. She thinks he's a hack. She thinks he's a con artist, whatever. And so she goes and she's in her room and she says that I already see him enough. So she clearly is one of his patients. And whenever the brain is trying to take over people's minds, the stronger ones who are rejecting it, like this girl in the opening, starts hallucinating. And when she hallucinates, she sees this teddy bear in her room like start bleeding out of its eyes, and like these creepy freaking velociraptors, that's what I was gonna say, velociraptor looking hands coming through the walls and through the mirrors, and then like tentacles coming out, and she's screaming. Her mom runs in, and she gets like wrapped up by this tongue looking thing, and she tries to like save her mom and ends up stabbing her to death because that shit ain't real. And then she thinks that it's coming at her, so she jumps out the window and kills herself. So, and that's, I mean, it's something I've talked about a couple times on here, but that kind of stuff is so terrifying to me, having your mind fucked with like that, because in a film, you can just be like, whatever. But in reality, you believe what you see. Like when if I was sitting here and I just all of a sudden saw this gigantic brain looking thing break into my room and start attacking me and start attacking my children, of course I would fight it. Of course I would try to kill it. Of course I would just try to, and then I would realize that I've killed my kids trying to protect them. I think I would just instantly kill myself anyways, even if the thing wasn't attacking me. And it's just, that's such a terrifying thought to me, not being able to trust what you see. Because how can you not? Like, how do you defend against something like that? Like, what if it actually is there? Because this brain thing does exist in reality. So how do you tell the difference between when it's actually in your room, when it's actually attacking loved ones, and you have to come in and save them? I mean, this whole film could have been in the the main protagonist's mind, but he he had to just go off of faith that it was there. So yeah, I don't know. Any movie that plays off of that kind of stuff, it's almost unfair. Like, you're just sitting there like, well, this guy's fucked because how can he trust anything around him? And now, the pure sodium thing in the toilets. I love how they obviously foreshadow the ending of how he's going to be able to defeat the brain. And when he grabs the shit off the shelf, it just so happens to be sodium. And he throws it in his mouth, and it's like, man, that stuff better. That thing must have the most like acidic stomach acid ever, because it eats through that plastic in like a second before it blows up. It would have made a little more sense if he would have unscrewed the lid and like dumped it into his mouth, or like threw it into his mouth. But he just throws the whole thing in there, which I thought was kind of silly. And then they have to put a warning at the end of the movie. Like, as soon as the movie ends, we don't get credits. We get an immediate warning. You know, the events depicted with the sodium in this movie were for whatever, like, never attempt this. It could be dangerous to your health. I was like, wow. They were really worried that people were going to see that and be like, yeah, I'm going to go dump some sodium down a toilet. Which I have to say, I wouldn't do it because I'm a 35-year-old man with 2 children. But if I was younger, I would probably be looking for some sodium to throw down in my school's toilet to be like, does this work? Will it shoot out of the drinking fountains? I don't know, probably. I'd have to see it. And the main character in this movie, I like his arc, because he's not just a goody two-shoe. He's not just a good guy. He's kind of an anti-hero who learns his lesson and is a better person at the end. Like, he's a dick in the opening. He's trying to push his girlfriend into sex that she doesn't want. He's playing pranks on everyone and blaming everyone, saying it's his, it's their fault, not his fault. I did have to laugh, though, when he comes to school and he's getting this suspension talk about not being able to graduate. And they're like, you have some of the highest test scores in the school. And he's like, yeah, well, that's not affecting my behavior is not affecting my grades, is it? And earlier in the movie, like 5 minutes before that, he comes to school and is basically begging his girlfriend to let him copy her homework or whatever the hell that is in class. And she's like, you get me in trouble. And it's like, if you're such a fucking genius, then why do you need to copy your girlfriend's work? That didn't really match up for me. I mean, clearly he could have just missed it and he didn't study that, and it was just beneath him because he thinks classes are stupid and that he's so smart already, and he's just gonna use whoever, and maybe that's his intelligence as well, as being able to manipulate people like that. But that adds to his shitty character yet again. And there's a bunch of things in this movie that he's just not a great person. And then at the end, he seems to have come full circle, and he's, he understands it now. Like, he even is upset at the end that the principal that was trying to help him died. And you can see, like, man, like, I do feel like a dick now. And I like that. I like that we kind of get a moral of a story, a little Scooby-Doo ending of like, kids, this is why we don't do this, because of this result. It was funny to me, though, there is a part in this where in the opening, when I was talking about him trying to have sex with his girlfriend, she says, no, I've decided I don't want to fuck you till college. And he's like, well, what if I don't go to the same college as you? And she's like, well, you better go to the same college as me if you want to get laid. Which is kind of a dick move. I'm not going to say it isn't. It's a ridiculous thing to ask somebody. Like, go to my college so you can have sex with me. Like, don't explore your options and make sure you're going to the best college for your future. Like, go here so I can have sex. And I'm pretty sure there are other girls in college who will have sex with me. So it is a stupid ultimatum. Regardless, she then ends up later in the movie, while they're in dire straits, they decide to have sex randomly. Which, I wrote a script, my very first script ever, and I put a sex scene like right in the middle of the thick of it. Like right when these two characters were like at, in the most trouble they could have been in. Like they were probably going to die at any minute. Didn't matter. And they were in this room, and there was like this shower sex scene, and everyone like hammered me for it. Like, this just, like, I love the script, but that scene is so stupid. Why would they stop? And I'm like, obviously you haven't met me, because I agree with these characters completely. The ones in this movie and the one in my script. If I'm going down fucking. Okay, everyone's like, I go down without a fight. I'm not going down without a fuck. So when this happened in this movie, I was like, yes, they get it. See, they think they're gonna die. They're both virgins. Well, at least she is, I think. We don't know, but more than likely they're both virgins. And it's like, we probably should fuck. Like, let's just get it out of the way in case we die. But then, getting to the whole point of this, coming full around here, at the very end, we see that he's applying to like Princeton and other colleges. So the moral of the story here is don't give it up. Because she was possibly going to get him to go to the same school. But now that he had sex with her, he's like, I can go to Princeton. I can go wherever. I already got her, so I don't need to go to her school. I just thought that was funny how at the end he was talking about Princeton. And I was like, oh, now you don't care now that you got it. And they like drive off at the end together in the car. And I'm like, does she know you're applying to other colleges? Does she know she shouldn't have had sex with you? Anyway, I think I went way off track of my notes here, so I'm probably going to miss some shit like I always do. And oh man, the brain. Now the brain starts as like this little brain, and then he eats that hot chick with the great tits who's in his hallucination. And all of a sudden he like breaks out and morphs into this faced creature that we see on the cover. And look at that shit. How do you not want to watch this movie with this back cover? Like, they put that big time on the back because they were like, that's selling the movie. Look at the legs sticking out. He needs the floss. But yeah, he eats, and every time he eats, he just gets bigger and bigger. You know, mind over matter. That's the tagline of the film. So yeah, I just thought it was funny how like he eats this chick and then he all of a sudden like gets a face and gets bigger, and then he eats a couple other people and just gets bigger and bigger. And the scene where the cop comes into the diner and he's looking for him, and then the kid comes out and he's fighting no one. Oh man, as I said, I love that we kind of get to see it without the creature and without the effects, so we can see how stupid and crazy he looks. Like, this is like what he's seeing is he's fighting a monster and this and that. And plus, this was a great way to cut down on production, money. Like, okay, well, how are we gonna have him fight this in the diner? Well, let's just make it invisible and then it's in his mind. Oh, that's an awesome idea. Okay, that's cheap. But I do like that we get to see him fighting nothing in front of people, so they could be like, well, I was gonna believe him that this was happening until I saw that, and now he's fucking crazy, and I know it, and I'm turning him in. Like, there's no brainwashing necessary. And that's another cool thing that we got going on here. It's like TV rots the mind, right? Like, that was kind of what was going on at this time period. In the late 80s, there was this whole, mothers against every fucking thing, and how the television was warping our minds, and it was putting subliminal messages, and it was, we were being told what to do through, and that's been something forever, but I just remember a lot of it back when I was a kid, because that was when I was a little kid, and I kept hearing about, like, TV was going to rot your brain. Not from my mother. She let me watch whatever the fuck I want, clearly. But, yeah, it just seems like a product of its time. The scene where this chick is watching the TV, and the guy is able to start getting into their minds and talking to them specifically. As they're viewing, the brain is taking over and sending signals specifically to their brain in order to, change the perceptions of what's on the TV so that they can speak directly to each individual viewer to get other people to join or die. And so he tells her, like, your husband needs to watch. And she goes outside and she's like, I'd like you to watch with me. And he's like, no. I'd like, this is the principle. I'd like you to watch with me. No, 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 no. And then she's like, basically, it just comes down to watch this show with me or I'm going to cut you in half with a fucking chainsaw, which she ends up doing. Great stuff, man. I just love the whole manipulation, and it's about to go, wide. At the end of this movie, we're going to be broadcasting to millions of people. We're going to take over. The Brain's going to be unstoppable at this point because he feeds off of everyone's, minds as they're watching on TV. And the car that he outruns them with is hilarious. I'm not a car person, so I don't know what it is. It looks like a little fucking Pinto for all I know, but it's like this little POS with no hood, and somehow he's outgunning this squad car that's chasing behind him and is able to take a corner without the cop car being able to take it, and then he drives it off of a cliff and just goes and hides behind a rail right there in front of him. These cops are dumbasses in this. They can't drive and they can't think either. I also like that the Brain, instead of having him talk, because I think that would have just looked silly, and yes, this film is cheesy, and it's a B movie, and it's already kind of silly. I just think that the Brain actually, opening his mouth and talking might have went a little overboard and made it kind of just feel stupid. I feel, as silly as this movie is, I do feel like it's genuinely eerie and creepy a lot of the times. And I feel like him just turning around and being like, "Get them for me," in his big mouth, rah, 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 would just be stupid. So I like that he's communicating on the television, that they look over and his words are coming across the TV, kind of like an R2-D2 Luke Skywalker thing. He looks down and he's like, oh, that's what he's saying. So, yeah. And then later in the show, he is trying to be all inconspicuous and be able to get through this lobby of all these people who are on the lookout for him. And his plan is to throw on sunglasses in the middle of the night indoors. That's it. That's his plan. That's just some shades. And his mom and his dad are standing right there. And as soon as he walks through, which is great, his mom's like, "Hey, isn't that you? Oh my God, that's my son. He's a murderer. He's a psycho." It was funny because it was just like, that's how it would happen. He wouldn't have been able to make it through there for 2 seconds, and he doesn't. So I love that they stick to that. It's just like, what are you thinking? And then he goes up and he punches the head off of the doctor in this movie. And he's like, look, he's not even human. I don't know what we are being led to believe there. I was trying to ponder that as the movie was kind of ending. Like, is this like an alien? Is that where the Brain came from? It came from like a different planet, and this guy is one of the, I don't know. Is he being controlled by the Brain? Was he a human who then the Brain took over and made not human? Was he some kind of a robot type thing? I don't know. He looked like he had organic material in him. So I'm guessing, I don't know, alien? And he brought the Brain with him. He seemed to be the one that wanted to protect him the most, but he was like a scientist. I don't know. I don't know where that was going. They didn't really get into it, but I just kind of had to think about it a little bit, and I don't really have any. Another question I have is just, how is the Brain moving around? Like, they only show it from this one specific shot, like from here on the Brain's head up, but like leaving the last 2 feet of the ground out, and we can kind of see that it just goes flat. So I don't know if that thing has legs, or it is like a snake and it's weaving itself, or if it has a lot of little legs like a centipede, or it's floating. I think that's what it's supposed to be doing. I think it's supposed to be like a flying head. And when we see it in wide shots for a half a second, you can clearly see that it's rolling across the ground because the thing's flat to the ground. But I don't know if we're supposed to fill in the blanks and it's supposed to just be flying across the room. I'm curious on what everyone thinks of how this thing's actually getting around, especially when it's so huge at the end. It's like the size of a fucking car. So, I'm curious on how the thing is supposed to be moving around, actually. I think that's it. As I said, I kind of went around these. This will be the only movie I'm doing tonight because I am catching up on Walking Dead right now for the series, mid-season premiere that was tonight. I'm a couple episodes back, but I'm going to catch up on that. I won't be doing spoiler discussions because no one seemed to give a shit when I was doing them, and I don't blame them. The show's gotten kind of weird. And I may have been watching a little Queer Eye on Netflix. Don't tell anybody. Anyway, guys, all right. Well, until next Sunday for Slasher Sundays and Mondays for Monster Mondays, I will see you for some new series I'm sure I'll run through over the next few days. So thank you to everyone that I mentioned earlier in the film, and have a good night, guys.